Hey there. So this is going to be kind of an off-the-cuff video. Not really off the cuff, I have notes on an iPad, but circumstances have led me to be away from my personal studio setup. The whole point of this video is basically giving my thoughts on the state of PC gaming as a whole. Is it really the best option that everyone should be pushed to automatically? I feel like for years that's kind of been the thing where it's like, well, if you really want to have everything, then you should just get a PC. So I'm just going to be going into my thoughts about that. Not to discount PC at all, but PC is a great platform to play games on. I think everyone knows this. If you've played games on PC, you know why. You have mods, the freedom to play however you want, and I mean, realistically, the only thing that limits you is your wallet, right? How much can you afford to put into your setup? That's really your only limiting factor. Other than that, I mean, sky's the limit. PC gaming does have its positives, PC gaming also has its negatives. So do the negatives outweigh the positives today in this current era of gaming? My opinion as of late has been that the current gen consoles, those being the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, are actually good enough so that if you wanted to buy those consoles, I don't think you would be missing out as much as you would have back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean 2010s or so? Let me explain. So from my point of view, I think PC gaming, I guess at least in my circles, really hit its stride in the early 2010s. Of course, PC gaming was a thing way before that, obviously. The first time I ever played video games was on a PC, on like DOS, it was Pong. Maybe that's dating myself, but that's true, like PC gaming's always been there. In 2010s, it became like the new standard. And, I think that was for a couple of reasons. The PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, around the year 2010, were about 4 or 5 years old, which is kind of like the end of a theoretical console's life cycle. However, they didn't go away then. The successors didn't come in 2010, they came later in 2013 because there was the influence of the Wii. The Wii was really successful and still is the most successful console of that generation in terms of sales numbers, right? That console sold way more than the Xbox and the PlayStation 3. In an attempt to piggyback off of that success, Microsoft and Sony were trying to see what they did differently and apply it to their formula. And to them, that was motion controls. Motion controls was the thing that they thought would bring in the numbers. So as a result, you had PlayStation with the PlayStation Move, the little wand, and then you had the Kinect. This focus on motion controls caused that console era to stagnate a bit. And around the 2010s, early 2010s, from 2010 to 2013, which was before the PS4 and the Xbox One came out, people were kind of wanting something else. From a graphics perspective, games were kind of peaked at a certain level, right? There was only so far you could push the 360 and the PlayStation 3. So if you wanted a graphical leap, PC was the only option at the time. When I started getting into PC gaming, a lot of my friends were also getting into PC gaming, and the benefits made themselves very apparent. You didn't have to pay to play online. That was a big thing for me. I hated the fact that Xbox Live cost money. It's really dumb and shouldn't be a thing. That was the good thing about the PlayStation 3 is that it was free to play, and that was awesome. But then the PlayStation 4 came around and changed all that, and whatever. But by the time I had gotten into PC gaming, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out, and I didn't really feel the need to make the jump into those consoles. I skipped that generation entirely. I just had a PC, and I was totally happy with that. Most of the games I wanted to play were on PC. I mean, if they were on console, they were also on PC. Like, I'm a huge fan of Gears of War. Gears of War 4 came out on PC, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play it here. And I think the funniest thing about that, again, with the multiplayer aspect of having to pay for Xbox Live to play online, you simply just did not have to pay for Xbox Live to play Gears 4 online on PC, which makes the entire concept of even paying for Xbox Live silly. You have some of the population playing Gears 4 on Xbox and having to pay to even play online, and then you have the other side of the population of the game's player base playing on PC, and they don't have to pay, and it creates this disparity between the player base, and that is just silly. Like, there should not be a bar to entry for multiplayer. Anyway, side rant. Another thing about PC is that it was cheaper to get games on there, simply for the fact that Steam had a lot more regular sales. There are also other vendors besides Steam where you could get your games from too, so you had choices. PC gaming just made more sense to me. And I had a lot of fun, and just being able to just have my computer, play games on it, do work on it, you know, homework and stuff, everything all in one, cool, right? It was great. But that's not to say that PC does not have any flaws. It does. In more recent years, there has been the crypto boom. And I think if you were paying attention around, you know, maybe 2018 to 2020, 2021, there was this boom in interest in crypto and crypto mining and farming Bitcoin, and everyone was like buying parts for computers to build mining computers to, you know, get rich quick off of crypto. And this sudden demand in GPUs especially, as well as other components for computers, made the prices of everything skyrocket. And that kind of maintained and, you know, didn't really go away for a few years. Prices for PCs were extremely high. It was very expensive to build a new computer. God forbid something broke and you had to replace it, you were hosed. You know, you had to go get something. And it was going to be exorbitantly more expensive than what you originally paid for it. Also, nowadays the cost to entry can be much higher than consoles. And now we're talking about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. And when you compare what you get at the $500 price point with a console versus what you would get at that price point with a PC, you'd have to spend double or maybe even $300 more to get a close to similar experience performance-wise as to what you would get on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. And that can be a deciding factor for some people. Sometimes it's just the cheapest option, whatever works, but if that cheaper option is also like better, then, you know, that's kind of solves your problem. And PC gaming at the low end can be pretty suboptimal. I've seen some suggestions for how to lower the price of a PC build is to, you know, by just not having a graphics card, relying on your integrated graphics. And, you know, this is an option for some people. You know, if you only play Minecraft or, I don't know, like, you'd have to play like Terraria, Minecraft. They're very easy to run games for an integrated graphics to be of any use to you. Anything other than that, you're going to need some kind of discrete GPU. The other thing too being that graphics cards now are way more expensive, especially at the higher end and mid to high end, than they were years ago. Like if you wanted a 4080, it would be like, I think they're like $1,200. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure they're like really expensive. Everything's much more expensive if you wanted like the high-end gaming experience. And of course there are lower end cards that you can get to, but like if you want that like 4K gaming experience, there's a much higher cost to entry than there is for, you know, just getting a console. One other thing too about PCs are computers. They do run Windows. And Windows has its flaws, problems, glitches. PC can, you know, of course, may lead to more troubleshooting than a console would. You may think you'll be totally fine if you only game on your computer. Like, well, I only game, you know, nothing could possibly happen on my computer that would make it glitch out. You'd be surprised. Computers are always finding a way to mess themselves up and cause you a headache for no reason.
Every single day, automatically, your PC needs to restart to finish installing important updates. Every single day. And every single day, I click later. You know why I click later? Because there's no option to click never. I'd like to click never. I never want to install these bullshit, meaningless, superfluous, I hate them!
That is more of a thing that you should consider on the PC side. So is the new generation of consoles, being the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, are they good enough to skip over PC gaming? In my opinion, I think so. Now, I'm coming at this from my personal perspective on this, and as someone who has gamed on PC and on console for pretty much all of their life, and kind of flipping flop between the two, to me, this is something that comes from a convenience factor. So let me explain, right? COVID got to the United States in 2020, lockdowns happened, working from home became the thing. Like I work from home pretty much all the time now. So that meant that I had to set up my work computer at my home desk. And that's where my PC is. And at first it was fine. I was like, cool, I'm gaming and working at the setup. However, after a few months, I started getting really fatigued because I was spending so much time, you spend 8 hours a day working your 9 to 5 at your desk at home. And then you log off from work, and then it's like, cool, I want to jump on at like 7:30 and play with my friends. And you're going to be back at that desk. And maybe sometimes you want to play right when you get off work. So you're just sitting at that desk all day. There were times where I just felt like I sat at my desk and did not move the entire day. And that kind of messes with you, I think. It at least messed with me from a mental state perspective. And that's a whole other topic of like healthy ways of coping with just working from home all the time. Maybe going outside once in a while would, maybe cause some separation from the whole work-life balance thing. That whole situation really motivated me to get an Xbox. I was like tired of playing games on the same desk that I worked at. So I was like, what if I just get an Xbox? I kind of wanted that new Xbox. Why don't I just get the Xbox? I can put it at my TV and I can play games on the couch. And so I did that. And that just made such a difference because I was able to log off of work, get off the desk, and also sit in a more comfortable, couch and not just sitting in the same chair for the entire day to help separate work from play. The couch is where I relax, the chair is where I work. And having that separation was worth getting the console for. I think the consoles overall are a little more convenient. Like I was talking about before with troubleshooting, consoles don't really need that much troubleshooting. You can just kind of press the on button, sign in, and you just play a game. You don't have to deal with Windows or anything like that. It's a very streamlined experience. And I think that's a good positive for consoles. And going back to the whole pricing thing, consoles are just cheaper and better at their price point than PCs, like for $500. A $500 PC is not going to be able to compete performance-wise with an Xbox or PlayStation. It's just not happening. You're going to have to spend way more money to get that kind of graphics horsepower. One of the downsides, again, is having to pay for online multiplayer. Again, I must stress that I hate that. I don't think that should be a thing. But for Xbox, at least, if you get Game Pass Ultimate, it's wrapped into that. So, it's a hidden cost. But it's still there. You just should not have to pay for it. But, that's the one negative for consoles right there, is just still having to pay for online multiplayer, which is ridiculous. And again, just to cap off thoughts on graphics, I think at this point, consoles have hit a really good stride with what they can present. The games look amazing. I don't think there's really much of a noticeable difference between my current PC setup, which is it's like 5 years old at this point, and like an Xbox Series X. My PC is more powerful on paper, more RAM. I don't know if the 1080 is more powerful than what's in the Xbox, but a 1080 is still a good card. And I can play any game I want on my PC and it looks great. And for me personally, I don't see much of a difference. I'm not losing anything if I choose to play on one platform or the other. Both my Xbox and my PC are kind of equivalent. And maybe the Xbox is actually a little better because it has newer technology in it. In closing, PC has its place still. I firmly believe that. I'm not getting rid of my PC anytime soon. I still play on my PC every now and then with my friends. As long as you have the money, that's the only thing that stops you from having better performance. You can upgrade your computer whenever you want and get that extra bump. You're not limited to the next console release. There are multiple options to buy games from different platforms and different vendors that allow more choice, so you're not just only stuck with the prices that Microsoft gives you. You can go to different vendors and get different prices, and there are sales regularly on Steam, and I think, what's the other one? The G2G, I forget what it's called. There's another one. The people who made The Witcher, that company, they have that. It's probably be on screen right here. I forget what it's called. It's good marketplace, so you could use that. I think to me, the thing that makes me gravitate towards consoles more, like I was saying before, is the convenience. That for me is just what I want right now out of my gaming experience. I don't have as much time as I used to when I was younger to play games. So for me, I like the fact that I can turn on my Xbox, play a game, and I can turn it off, and I don't really have to think about it. It's just easier, quicker, and a much more breezy experience. And PC can be that too, but there are some times where my PC has issues with certain games, and then you end up sometimes spending an hour troubleshooting an issue, and then you have to I guess I have to go to bed now and figure it out tomorrow, and that can be frustrating. And that's not to say that doesn't happen on console either, because I think the biggest problem with console is maybe a surprise download, and then the download takes 5 years, and that it's not really dependent on your internet speed. It's dependent on how fast Microsoft wants to give it to you, or Sony wants to give it to you. So you're just kind of at the mercy of if you have an update. But that's again something that can happen on PC too. So everyone has their problems, but I personally have a more convenient and quicker experience on console, and that to me is why I prefer playing on there at the moment. And just to throw this out there, I know that you can put a PC in the living room, connect it to your TV, and then boom, you basically have a console. But it's a PC, and you have all the Steam libraries and all the other stuff that you can do on the PC. That would not work for me and my setup. But that is an option, and you could do that. Steam has the big picture mode, which works pretty well. You can access your entire Steam library and play off of your TV with a controller or whatever input method you want. That is an option. Not an option for me, but that's an option for other people. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts. Hopefully this was an entertaining video to watch. This isn't usually how I like to make my videos. I like to have them more scripted instead of just having notes that I'm reading, kind of just vomiting at you through my mouth with words. But hopefully soon I'll be able to work on a bigger video that I have planned, which I was actually wanting to make next, but because of my health circumstances, I wasn't able to. So it'll be Switch related. So if you were one of the thousands of people who watched the Nintendo Switch video, I have another one coming. That'll be fun. It's going to be pretty ambitious, pretty big. So yeah, look out for that. And yeah, I will see you next time.